Hey everyone, and welcome. This video is the culmination of everything I've worked on this entire year for this channel and for watching movies, and so it is finally here. Today I'm giving you my ranking of every single film I have seen in 2023 from the worst to the best. There are 76 of these. I have my list right in front of me. I'll be referring to it all video, and we are going to go through each movie from 76 to 1. I will give you my ranking and a little short spiel about why they are there. Before I get into this, I just wanted to say that this is my ranking, my personal ranking of how I feel about these films. Obviously, yours will be different. Obviously, other YouTubers will be different. Obviously, that is okay. That is what makes movies so great, is we can all agree and disagree on different things. And if we weren't able to do that, then it wouldn't be fun to talk about movies anyway. Another thing is, while I tried to watch every movie that came out this year, every blockbuster, every big film, if you don't see a movie in here that you enjoyed, or you don't see a movie in here that you hated, that you wanted to hear me talk about, it's because I didn't have time to get to them. I had a pretty busy year. I was still able to get in over 75 films. I think I did pretty well. If one of your favorites is not on here, I apologize. Let me know. I will try to check it out. Maybe I can get a review out to you guys on that. Everybody, get comfortable. This might be a long one. Get a snack, get a drink, beer, water, whatever you want. I got my water right here. I'm ready to go. Let's get into this. With number 76, we have Skinamarink. Fuck this movie, man. I stared at a wall for an hour and 40 minutes and nothing happened. I don't get why people like it. It's my last place movie. At number 75, we have Jung-E. This movie was not this low when I first watched it, but the more I think about it, the more I realize how boring this movie was, and if I ever put it back on, it'll be because I can't sleep and it'll be a natural melatonin for me. At number 74, we have Meg 2: The Trench. I actually quite enjoyed the original Meg film, but this one was so over the top and so cheesy. It went from being a cool human fighting shark film to there was terrorists, there was bombs, there was underwater companies. I don't even know what the hell happened in this film. It sucks. Coming in next at number 73, we have Expendables 4 or Expend4ables, however they wrote that title. Again, this is one I didn't have this low when I first watched it, but the more I think about it and the more I think about how cringy the dialogue was and how Stallone gets killed off in the first 5 minutes and then randomly he shows up again at the end and there's no explanation, what the hell was that? This movie sucks. It's in my bottom 5. And rounding out my bottom 5, at number 72, we have Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. I know this will be most people's bottom of their list, and I 100% understand that, but the theater I went to on opening night was so damn fun. Everybody was laughing at the movie and enjoying themselves, and I think if I watched it at home, it'd be lower, but just because of that, it's not in my last spot. I still know it's a shitty movie, though. Coming in next at 71, we have The Retirement Plan. There's years when Nick Cage makes great films and he goes 3 for 3 consistent, and there's years when Nick Cage makes shit films and he goes 0 for 3 consistent. This is one of those shitty years for Nick Cage. And coming in at number 70 to round out the bottom, we have Inside, the Willem Dafoe movie that I was very excited for. I saw Willem Dafoe attached. I saw he plays crazy, which is the best way to watch Willem Dafoe. And it just was boring the whole time through. Nothing happens. That's about it. Don't need to watch this one. Coming in at number 69, we have You People, a comedy with Eddie Murphy and Jonah Hill. You would think that cast and that type of movie would be perfect, but this movie is so annoying, it's so preachy, it's so over the top, and nothing even happens in it. I think I laughed once and it was like a little chuckle. That ain't good for a comedy. Number 69. At number 68, I have The Creator. An interesting sci-fi film that at first you think is saying something important and saying something special, and then at the end you realize that for some reason the guy who made this movie wants you to root for the AI over the real people. What the hell is that? Dumb movie. And at number 67 we have 65. A Adam Driver driven movie about dinosaurs and space travel that was boring. How do you make that a boring movie? I promise you, I've never made a movie, but put me behind the camera and I can at least make it entertaining for you. Coming in at 66, we have Sick. This was announced as a COVID slasher, and while the slasher and horror aspects of this movie were pretty good, And while the slasher and horror aspects of this movie were pretty good, the motivation behind the killer was so stupid and so annoying with the times, I just couldn't deal with it. The ending really killed this movie for me. Coming in at 65, we have Bird Box Barcelona, a unwanted sequel that is just the same story but now in another language, another country, and it's boring as all hell and it doesn't need to exist. Coming in at 64, we have Boston Strangler. And while I can admit this movie is a solid movie, I was completely bored out of my mind the whole time. It's like watching Zodiac, but boring. It's like you take the movie Zodiac and you take all the fun and all the energy out of it and you get Boston Strangler. Coming in at 63, we have Infinity Pool. Now, I can understand and accept the art behind this movie and the different things they went for, but just was not for me at all. I can't get behind this movie. I can't get into it. Not for me. Next up at 62, we have Fool's Paradise. A dumb comedy. This movie doesn't have much to say. The main character doesn't have much to say. And I don't think this movie will ever be remembered. It's very forgettable. But hey, at least it didn't annoy me and at least it just came and went. At number 61, we have Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. This was one of my most anticipated films of the year, and I think that's why I had it rated so low, is because I was so amped up and ready for this, and it absolutely did nothing for me. There was a few jokes here and there that hit, but mostly the jokes fell flat. The movie didn't add anything to the MCU. It really felt like the MCU was just driving on cruise control, just trying to get by to the next film. At number 60, we have Poor Things. This is a film I just recently watched and reviewed, and while I appreciate the different ways this movie tried to do a Frankenstein fish out of water story, it was so uncomfortable and so just awkward to watch. I don't think I could ever watch this movie again. I don't think I could ever get behind it fully. At number 59, we have A Haunting in Venice. And all I can say about this movie is, at least it was better than Death on the Nile. At number 58, we're coming in with Blue Beetle. This movie I also recently watched. I didn't get to see it in theaters, so I saw it on HBO Max when it came out, and it's a solid superhero movie, but that is the issue with it. In today's day and age, when we get 10 superhero movies a year, a solid, average film just doesn't cut it for me, and it just feels like copy and paste of what I've already seen. At number 57, we have Maestro, the second movie directed by Bradley Cooper, and while his first film was a complete and utter success and a huge hit to me in A Star is Born, this one fell short. While it looked beautiful and it was filmed very nicely, it was just a bit boring to get through. Coming in next at 56, we have Chupa, a child family-friendly movie that I was able to put on when my niece was around, and honestly, I had fun with it. Was it a life-changing, game-changing, movie-changing kind of film? No, but it did what it needed to do. It entertained kids, it entertained me a little bit, and I was able to have fun with the characters involved. At number 55, we have Five Nights at Freddy's. Kind of a disappointment for me being this low on the list. While I did enjoy the film, it just was so generic, so average. If I looked up the definition of average movie from this year in the dictionary, this movie comes up. That's about all I got for it. At 54, we have The Killer. This is the brand new David Fincher movie, so you know I was super excited. I love Fincher's films. I love Social Network. I love Fight Club. I love Gone Girl. Sadly, I didn't love this one. Again, like Five Nights at Freddy's, one of the most average films of the year. One of the most average films I've seen. And I don't know. It's not something I'm ready to rewatch or I'm dying to rewatch. It feels like it's just going to come and go for me. Coming in next at 53, we have Renfield. And As a point of reference, I would say everything from this point on I had fun with and I was able to enjoy, and it's something I could at least put on in the background and be entertained by. So, like I said, at 53, Renfield. This is another Nick Cage movie this year, and like I said, Nick Cage kind of went 0 for 3 this year. It's not a bad film per se, but it's not a good film. It has some funny jokes, it has some cool, you know, gory scenes with Nick Cage as Dracula and Nicholas Hoult as Renfield, but doesn't really do enough to push itself past the boundary. At number 52, the third Nick Cage movie that I watched from this year, and that is Dream Scenario. The first half of this movie, I thought it was going to be one of my favorites of the year, possibly top 10. Then, the movie gets into some really weird territory, and I go, holy shit, this might be one of the best of the year for sure. And then that ending comes around and they make it about a TikTok sales trend with a YouTube house. I don't even know what the hell was going on. Completely ruined it. They could have turned this into a cool, like, Nightmare on Elm Street type story, and instead they took in such a weird direction. It feels like they had 2/3 of a film written, and the last third they were like, fuck it, let's just do something. Coming in at 51, we have Transformers Rise of the Beast, and this is just a solid fun time. Most of the movie I, was just kicking it back, watching, enjoying myself. I wasn't truly really into the story, but I was able to have a good time. I thought the ending was the best part with Bumblebee coming back and all the cool scenes they were able to make out of that. So, just a solid movie. And now, cracking into our top 50, at number 50, we have Wonka. I wasn't that excited for this film. My cousin is really into these Willy Wonka type films. He loves Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. He asked me to go. I said sure, it looks good enough. And that's what it was. It was good enough. I thought the first 2/3 of this film was quite cringy. I couldn't get behind any of the musical numbers or the songs they had. And if you're gonna do a musical and your music is cringy and annoying, that's usually not a good sign. I thought the last third, when they all came together to work together and to, and to solve the issues that were happening along the way in this film, I thought that was very nice. It made me smile. I was able to get behind the characters a little more, and that kind of saved the film a bit for me. Now at 49, this is very, very disappointing to me that it's this low on this list. Probably the most disappointing. And that's Creed 3. The first two Creeds are both in my top 10 for the year they came out, and I was 100% sure this was going to be my top 10. I didn't like the style of this film. While the story between Creed and his childhood friend was a cool story, a cool dynamic to work with as you went along with this movie, I didn't really care for Michael B. Jordan's directorial style. I hope they make a Creed 4, and I hope that they continue this story, but I do wish for someone else to be behind the camera because I just wasn't for that style they had. At number 48, we have a movie that's up for Oscar awards, and that is May December. This movie was entertaining. It kept me, glued to the screen. I wanted to figure out what happened, but at the same time, it felt boring, and I don't know how really to make sense of that, because how is a movie entertaining and boring at the same time? You really wouldn't understand until you watch this and maybe feel the same way I do. So check it out. It might be for you, it might not. I kind of fall in the middle on it. Next at 47, we have a movie that a lot of people seem to hate, but I thought was just a fun family time, and that is Doggone. I was able to connect to the son and dad characters in this. I was able to follow them along on their journey. I felt the journey was very heartfelt, very emotional, and it really tugged at the heartstrings, and you were able to connect with this family, and you were cheering for them to succeed. So at the end, when obviously the happy ending comes, you are happy for these characters, and you just want the best for them. Coming in next at 46, we have About My Father. My two favorite comedians at this point in my life are Dave Chappelle and Sebastian Maniscalco. So when I heard Maniscalco was making his own movie about his dad, who he always has little skits about, and De Niro was going to be his dad, I thought it was lightning in a bottle. Sadly, the jokes don't really hit. There's a few here and there that I laughed at. The ending was heartwarming and nice. As an Italian, I could connect to the story, but it just wasn't that funny for me. Next up at 45, we have Jesus Revolution, and this was a solid movie almost all the way through. I felt a lot of heart and emotion coming from the story. As a person of faith, I was able to connect to the story, and I thought it was a beautifully told story and a beautifully written story. I found it even cooler that it came from real life scenarios, and I really enjoyed this movie. Then the ending came, and it kind of ended on a depressing note, on a note where the two main leads started to fight with each other and fell out of friendship. I didn't care for that because this is a movie about faith and about people coming together, and to end on people falling apart kind of put a sour taste in my mouth. But as the overall experience, I'd say it's worth a watch. At number 44, we have Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. That is a hell of a title. Again, with this one, I feel like a lot of movies that fall in this area, cringy humor. The ending, again, saved the film. It had a lot of heart and emotion. There were a few jokes sprinkled here and there that I was able to laugh at, but overall, cringy humor. The cringy humor that we're getting in these movies is not for me. I don't know if it's like a new wave of humor. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. These ones didn't for me. Next up at 43 is a movie I did find funny, and that is The Blackening. This is a black comedy horror movie from director Tim Story, and I thought it was a super fun time. The jokes really hit. Everybody in my theater was laughing and having a good time. The only reason it's a little bit lower and doesn't crack, you know, the top half of my list is because that killer reveal was so brutal. It was so overdone. It was so generic. I think I guessed it like 15 minutes into the film. It doesn't help much. Coming in at 42, we have Leave the World Behind, the brand new Netflix film. And it seems like every year now we're getting a end of the world Netflix movie. Sometimes I really enjoy them, like Don't Look Up. Sometimes I think they're average, like White Noise. And I think this one fell right there in the middle, right between those films. The first half, I thought this was a great film. I thought it was really good. I thought it had something to say. I thought it was so entertaining. And then we kept going downhill and downhill and downhill. And finally we got to that ending. And it ends where nothing is resolved. And all you have is a girl watching the final episode of Friends, which was the most annoying part of that film, that this chick just had to watch the final episode of Friends when the world was ending. I did not care for the ending, and it kind of ruined the film for me. Next up at 41, we have Equalizer 3, and if I had to explain this movie in one sentence, it would be a solid, good action film. It doesn't change action as a genre. It doesn't build off what came before. It doesn't move it on to a new thing. It's just simply a good film, and if you want an easy watch, good action film, you throw this on. Next up at number 40, breaking our top 40, is The Flash, a brand new DC comic book movie, and I fairly enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was entertaining. I didn't think it did anything different, and that's why it's lower on my list. Like I said, comic book movies that don't do anything different, it's kind of hard to be a good movie nowadays because you get 10 of these a year. However, I think in terms of that, it's an above average comic book film. Next at 39, we have Evil Dead Rise. And I actually really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was a lot of fun. I actually bought it on 4K. I plan to rewatch it. I think the reason it's so low on this list is because that Evil Dead name is attached to this movie. If there weren't 4 films in this franchise that are better than this one, it might be higher on my list. But when I think about it, all I think about is this is probably the worst Evil Dead film, and that doesn't help it that much. Up next at 38, we have The Boogeyman. And this is another generic, solid film for its genre, the horror genre. However, I think it does everything we've seen before, but good. The scares, we've seen them before, but they're good here. The character work, we've seen it before, but they're good here. The monsters and demons, we've seen them before, but they're good here. I think this is just an above average, solid horror flick. Up next at 37, we have Priscilla. And I thought this was a fairly good movie. It was fairly enjoyable. I liked watching Priscilla's side of this story. However, with Elvis coming out last year and me truly loving that film, I just think I'd rather watch it from Elvis's perspective and watch his story. And so this one just didn't really hit for me all that much. Coming in at 36 is Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And this is surprisingly a really good film. I mean, I know they had good source material to go off of with the book, but still, surprisingly a really good film. The only reason it's not cracking my top 30 is because, well, as a mid-20s man, I can't connect to it that much, but I still appreciate and understand that it is a good, heartfelt film. Coming in at number 35, we have No One Will Save You. This is an alien invasion film that is creepy as all hell, and it works, and it's very entertaining, and I love how the director actually had a film written for a coming-of-age story and decided to turn it into this alien film. I thought that worked very well. While I also think that kind of hurt the movie with the ending leaning more towards sappiness and less towards scary, it still was an entertaining time, and I wouldn't mind rewatching this one. Coming in next at number 34 is Final Summer, and this is the ultimate film that we saw at this film festival this previous summer. This was the one that was leading up to because it starred Tom Matthews, and I thought it was a fairly good time. It had a Scream vibe to it where it's a slasher movie that knows that it's stupid and is making fun of itself, and I think that's why I enjoyed it so much, because it wasn't trying to be a great slasher movie. It wasn't trying to change a genre or do something different. It knows it's generic and it knows that's stupid, and it made fun of itself so well, which made it so entertaining. Coming in next at 33, we have Cocaine Bear. And while this might not be a great movie, hell, it might not even be a good movie, it is one of the most entertaining movies of the whole year. This movie literally feels like you're on cocaine when you're watching it. What is happening throughout this film, the different action scenes, the different set pieces, the different characters that are all just so out there and crazy. This film works so well for me, and I have a blast watching it. Coming in next at 32, we have Champions. You put one of my favorite actors, Woody Harrelson, with one of my favorite things, basketball, and can make a funny and heartwarming story, you have me, you have my attention. And that's exactly what Champions is. This is one of the biggest surprises for me this year. I saw the trailer and I thought this was going to be stupid, but I decided to give it a watch because of Woody Harrelson, and man, I'm happy I did, because this was a very fun time at the movies. Coming in next at 31, we have Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Not as good as the original, but still a fun and entertaining comic book movie that I definitely would say is an above average DC film. Coming in next and cracking into our top 30, we have Totally Killer. This movie is Back to the Future meets Scream, and it is so much fun. It's off the wall bonkers. You get characters from the modern day mixed with their same characters but from the 80s, and this film is so fresh and so fun, and I highly recommend it. Coming in next at 29 is Megan. I thought this movie was going to be a Chucky ripoff. It looked so dumb to me. I didn't even want to give it a chance. But then the unrated version came out and I decided to try that one out. And it was a fun time. It's not a remake of Chucky, but kind of a take on Chucky meets AI doll, so Terminator. You mix them together, you have really good protagonists, you have a really cool antagonist in the doll Megan, and this is a fun time to watch. Next up at 28, we have Bottoms. I knew nothing about this film. It was not on my radar. I saw insane Letterboxd reviews. I decided to go see it, and man, it's fun. Is it a modern day Fight Club? No, I wouldn't agree with that statement, but I kind of see where people are coming from. It is more of a comedy than Fight Club. I do think the ending was so wild and out there that it really added to this film. And I'm starting to see in myself while doing this ranking that endings really matter to me in movies. An ending can make or break a film. You can have a pretty boring first half. If that second half is great, it can save the movie. If you have a great first half and a boring second half, that movie can end up in the very bottom of my tier ranking. Coming in next at 27, we have the brand new Eli Roth film, Thanksgiving. And this movie is fucking wild. I can't even explain it any other way. That opening scene at the supermarket is just messed up. It's gross. It's disturbing. And yet it's super entertaining. This movie is non-stop thrills and action and scares the whole way through. It can be a little funny. It can be a little messed up. It has a lot of Eli Roth in it, and I can appreciate that, and I really enjoyed this film. Coming in next at 26, we have Super Mario Bros. When I first watched this, I liked it a little more. Sadly, upon a rewatch, it fell down a little bit in my list, but I still think it's a good to really good animated film. I was surprised they were able to take this video game and turn it into such a good movie. Usually video game adaptations fail, but this one was fun. And honestly, I'm excited for Super Mario Bros. 2. I'll be seated for that. This franchise has my attention. Coming in at number 25 is a movie that I am so happy I rewatched and so happy it's just happened on the list, and that is Air. When I first saw this film in theaters, I don't know if I was in a bad mood or was tired or what was going on, but I hated it. It was towards the very bottom of my list, and I don't know why, because I love basketball and I love these kind of movies, and I just couldn't figure out what I didn't like about it. So, about a month back, I decided to give another try. It was out on streaming, and man, am I happy that I did that, because now it's in my top 25 of the year. Now it's a movie I look highly on, and a movie I would love to rewatch one day. At 24, we have what is, in my opinion, the scariest film of the year, and that is Talk to Me. This is another A24 movie that goes on an epic, wild ride, and it is so crazy, it is so bonkers. I usually am not a fan of these, possession films, but with this old hand relic that they use and the story they go on, I thought it was done very well. And like I said, probably the scariest film of the year. Up next at 23 is Past Lives. I know a lot of people seem to have this one in their top 10 on the year, and I completely understand that. For some reason, I just couldn't fully connect to the story, but I still thought it was really good. I mean, it's in my top third of my movies. I obviously liked it. I just couldn't connect to the story that much. At number 22, we have Sound of Freedom. This is a really good movie and a really powerful film to watch. The only reason it doesn't crack my top 20 is because I could never see myself watching this film again. It's hard to get through. It's hard to watch the events on screen. It's not pleasant, and it's not something you want to live through a lot. Coming in next at 21, and I'm surprised this didn't break my top 20, but there must have been a lot of good films this year, and that is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. This movie was so much fun. I had a blast the whole time. I came home and I wanted to watch it again. If it was on streaming, I probably would have. I loved it. I went to the pre-screening, had a great time, got a little poster, got a little comic book. It was awesome. The only reason this one doesn't break my top 20 is because I didn't really connect to that middle school type humor. I understand it. I get that these are supposed to be teenagers. It just didn't really hit for me. Everything else worked though. Next up at 20, we have Never Hike Alone 2, and that is right, a fan film cracked my top 20, but that just shows how much I love this Friday the 13th franchise and how highly I think of these films. I've said it before, give Womp Stomp their own Friday the 13th film. They deserve it. Coming in at 19, and I shouldn't have to, defend myself for putting a movie in my top 20, but coming in at 19, we have Oppenheimer. Yeah, this is everyone's number 1 or number 2 or top 5, and I get it. The way this movie is structured and created, it probably is the best movie of the year. It just didn't hit with me as much as other films did. Certain people have certain tastes in what they want to see when they go to a movie, and for me, I appreciate it. I think it's really good. It's in my top 20. This is just not my taste, my style when it comes to a movie that I really want to watch. Coming at number 18 is Killers of the Flower Moon, and the same thing I said for Oppenheimer I can say for this one, except I enjoyed this one a little more. It was a little easier to follow for me, a little better character work for me to grab onto and to work with, and that's why this one is above Oppenheimer. At 17, we have Scream 6. The Scream franchise is my favorite horror movie franchise, and while I thought 5 was just an average good movie, this one blew me out of the park. I loved it. Coming in number 16, we have They Cloned Tyrone. And while I was not excited for this movie, it took me months to watch it. I started seeing some really good reviews, I gave it a chance, and I loved it. This is so much fun. The characters are so much fun to be with. I love how it's like a spy thriller feel while also in a sci-fi movie. It takes all these different genres and blends them together so nicely, and I had a blast. Cracking my top 15 and bringing us right in is Elemental. This is a movie that shows Pixar can still do it and at a high level. After last year's showings of Lightyear and Turning Red, I thought Pixar was done for, but they came back and they made an exceptional film in Elemental, and one that is constantly out of my house because not only did I love it, but my niece did as well. Coming in at 14, we have Gran Turismo, and this might be the biggest shock of the year to me. When I saw the trailer, I thought it looked kind of dumb. I mean, it's a video game turned into a real story, turned into a movie adaptation that didn't seem all that entertaining. I wasn't even sure I wanted to go to it. It was just like the only thing showing that night that I haven't seen. We went to it, and I had a blast. I thought this movie was so much fun. I love David Harbour in these father-type roles. He does such a good job. Blew me away. One of the most surprising films of the year. At 13, another very surprising film for me is Theater Camp. I didn't think I liked this one at all, but it is so funny, it is so heartwarming, it's probably one of the funniest movies of the year. I laughed out loud at multiple scenes. I think that Ben Platt is an amazing actor. I like everything he's done. I think Pitch Perfect is one of his best works, but he was great in this too. Great movie. And at number 12, we have The Holdovers. And when I'm talking about some of the best made films of this year, this is up there, probably in the top 5. I think it's a great coming of age story. It reminds me a lot of Breakfast Club or Dead Poet Society. Obviously, I didn't find it as good as those movies because those are in my top 10 of all time, but it was in that, you know, same genre, same form of movie, and I really appreciated it. I thought the characters were amazing. I thought it was a great time. At number 11, we have Barbie. And this movie was way more fun than I thought it would be. I love the character of Ken. I thought Ryan Gosling was amazing in this movie. He was so funny. This movie is fun. The world is fun to live in. Another shock for me to be this high. And now we're getting into it, my top 10. Every single movie here is great. That means it's a good year for movies to have 10, honestly more than 10 great films. And starting it off, we have probably the first movie I saw this year, if not the first, one of the first, and that is John Wick Chapter 4. I saw this movie months ago, and it still sticks with me after watching 70 movies since. This movie is so fun. It's one of the best action films I've ever seen. The shots are beautiful. The action is beautiful. The cuts are amazing. The overhead drone scene is probably the coolest action scene I've ever seen in my life. What a fun time. At number 9, we have Asteroid City. And over the year, I've become a huge Wes Anderson fan. I've probably said that a few times on my channel. Surprisingly, this is the first Wes Anderson movie I ever saw, and this is actually the reason why I became a Wes Anderson fan. I thought the style was beautiful. I thought it was so crazy how this movie has no story but can still bring out so much emotion in people. A fantastic film, and I'm shocked it's not higher. At number 8, we have one of the most recent movies I saw this year, and that is Saltburn. I heard this movie is going to be messed up, but nothing could prepare me for what really happened in this film. Some things you couldn't even watch, sometimes you had to look away, but the movie is still beautifully shot. The story is so good, and the ending, when you see everything come together, perfect. At number 7, we have Blackberry, and this is a movie that I wasn't even dying to see. My girlfriend actually dragged me out to watch this one, and I'm so thankful she did because that was an awesome film. If there wasn't as many good films this year, I feel like this would be top 5 in any other year I do one of these rankings. I thought the characters were amazing, the actors were amazing, it never dulled, the movie was non-stop go-go action, following the story of Blackberry from their rise to their fall. Awesome movie, and the only reason we saw it is because the guy from Always Sunny is in it, so there you go. And next up at number 6, we have Missing. This movie is a thrill ride. You are on the edge of your seat the whole time, trying to figure out, along with the characters, what happens next, what's going on, why is this happening, where is her mom, who took her, who did this. It's crazy. Your mind is racing a million miles a minute, and it never stops going. And I can't believe a movie that is filmed through a phone camera and a computer camera and all these weird different styles of filming is this high up on my list. This movie is exceptional. We finally made it. If you guys are still watching, leave a like on this video, comment down below your top 5, hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate you guys. We are here. It's the top 5. My top 5 of the year. Might not be yours. I want to know yours. Whatever. Let's do this. Number 5, we have Dumb Money. And just, you know, for a point of reference, these top 5s, I honestly might give all 10 out of 10s to. That's how highly I think of these films. None of the other films on this list get a 10 out of 10. They're all up there. They're all close, you know, the most recent ones. But these 5 could get 10 out of 10. So here we have Dumb Money. And this movie felt like it was made for me. You've probably heard me say a lot of times on this channel that pacing is one of my biggest things in movies. If I get bored for a second, I lose interest. I can't have that. I need a movie to be perfectly paced for me to be on board. And if you want to talk about a perfectly paced film, look no further than Dumb Money. This movie moves a mile a minute. The story is epic. The characters are epic. You cheer for people. You want to root against people. You want to see the rich people fall in these. You want to see these Redditors rise to the top, and it's just so fun. And I think the reason it's so high up is because I actually lived through this, and I was a part of that. And I saw the whole GameStop movement on Reddit, and I joined in, and I followed along. And this movie just really hit home, and I think that's probably why it's in my top 5, as why it might not be in some of yours. At number 4, we have Godzilla Minus One. Holy shit, what a movie. I always have loved the Godzilla franchise, but this movie just heightened my love. I consider myself a Godzilla fan now. I'm trying to rewatch all the old Showa era movies, move on to the Heisei era movies. I'm so into this franchise. This movie is exceptional. I mean, who would have thought that a movie about a giant dinosaur lizard attacking a city could make you feel so much emotion, could make a theater fall silent, a whole theater just come to tears, a whole theater just be shocked and awe on what they're seeing, and the budget they used and the shots that they had. Marvel, figure it out, man. Why can't you do stuff like this? And my top 3. Coming in at number 3, we have Knock at the Cabin. I know, don't turn this video off just because it's not in your top 3, just because it's not even in your top half. Something about this movie works for me. Something about M. Night Shyamalan movies work for me. You guys might not like his twist. I think the twists are exceptional. I loved how the twist in this movie is that there's no twist at all. This shit's actually happening. The world is actually ending, and these people were actually trying to save it. This movie never stops. It goes a mile a minute. The scares are there. The thrills are there. The family values are there. Everything you want in a film. It can make you scared. It can make you laugh. It can make you cry. It's all here. And that ending, when they're driving away and that song comes on, is a perfect ending. Coming in next at number 2, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And if this list was purely on movies and what they mean to me, this would be number 1. The Guardians franchise is the most important franchise in my life. It is my favorite trilogy of all time. I love them to death. They have shaped my views on music and movies. And honestly, this movie is a perfect ending to that trilogy. But finally, at number 1, the moment you've all been waiting for, is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. If any movie this year was perfect, this is the one. I have 0 complaints. I have 0 flaws. If you told me to say something bad about this movie, I honestly don't think I could. Like I said, a perfect film, and it deserves my number 1 spot. Thank you all so much for watching. If you're still here at the end of the video, I appreciate you so much for sticking around and watching as I went through all 75 plus films. Please leave a like and subscribe to my channel as we enter the year of 2024. I want to grow this channel. I want to grow along with you guys and join me for the ride. Also, leave a comment below of your top 5, top 10 movies of 2023, and hell, if you guys are feeling brave enough, give me your entire ranking, all 50 movies you saw this year, whatever you saw. I promise I'll look at it, I promise I'll read through it, and I promise I'll respond. I love interacting with you guys. It's one of the main reasons why I continue to do this. So thank you all so much, and have a great day, and have a great year.